I'll be riding along thinking, this would make a great video. And then I don't film it. I'll have something I want to say, but then I don't say it. This happens on the bike, and it happens with this podcast too. And I've been trying to understand why. I want to start with a secret confession. I rarely film my bike rides, and I procrastinate in filming some of these episodes. Okay, so that isn't really a big secret. But you see, sometimes, many times, I feel guilty about that. Which is weird because, let's be honest, at this stage in my little content creation path, no one's really standing on the side of the road yelling, hey, when's the next thing gonna drop? But if you ride bikes and you like to shoot photos or videos, maybe this sounds a little familiar. As I've mentioned before, cycling and photography are my hobbies. They're also some of the things that kind of help keep me sane-ish. Cycling is usually my escape, my happy pills. And photography and video are they're kind of a way for me to process things that are kind of going on in the world. And it's kind of also how I convinced myself that buying more gear was a really good idea. But once a camera comes on a ride, these two worlds start to overlap. And you'd think merging two of your favorite hobbies is kind of a match made in heaven, a chocolate and peanut butter situation. But at that moment, for me, a ride stops being just a ride. Now it's a potential story or a possible video. Or a future hard drive full of footage that I might never actually get around to editing. Sometimes that's exciting. Sometimes it's exhausting. Okay, and here's where it gets a little more complicated. You see, photography and videography aren't just hobbies for me. It's also my full-time job. So, sometimes I go out for a relaxing bike ride and I kind of accidentally bring my entire job mentality with me. There's a voice in the back of my head that says, hey, you should record this. There's a story here. You could turn this into something. You need more angles. Normally, in the everyday life, that's not a bad thing. It's kind of a result of years of training looking for those moments and stories and angles and everything else. But it also means that sometimes, instead of mentally resting while I'm on these rides, I'm fully clocked in. And some days I just don't want that. And for those days where I do want to do that, I'll end up with a bunch of footage, but then I stress over a deadline that doesn't really exist. And then somehow I kind of feel like I'm just cosplaying as a videographer. I've got those days that I'm fully ready and engaged when I leave the house. I'm mentally prepared to be a creator. When I'm out on the bike, I try to remind myself to periodically hit the record button so that I have brief shots of video to use. And then, nothing. Not because something went wrong, but you see, once the camera's rolling, my brain changes. I stop being in the moment and feeling the ride and the world around me, and I start overanalyzing everything. Is what I'm seeing interesting enough? Should I stop here for something? Should I be saying something? Sometimes I don't want the ride to be productive. I just want the ride to be a ride. Or I have a free afternoon and some thoughts to share with a cafe stop. I'll work on putting finishing touches on what I want to talk about. And then, unfortunately, more times than I really want to admit, I start having questions of myself. Will someone find this? Do people really want to hear about this? And is this really even interesting enough? One of the things I think that it boils down to is that I'm used to telling other people's stories. I'm not used to telling my story because I don't think I always have a story to tell. I tend to live on the other side of the camera. So being on this side is kind of a process I need to get used to doing a little more. But I do have those days where I do hit record and I remind myself and I go through with it all. But then immediately my mind goes blank. I'm riding along thinking, okay, say something thoughtful, say something meaningful, or literally just say anything. And instead, I just provide very high quality, heavy breathing or absolutely nothing on top of the footage. Like, I don't want to talk just to fill space, but I feel compelled to talk because the camera's on. But again, instead, I'm just kind of left with rolling footage and silence. And honestly, typically, silence is kind of the point of doing these rides, this escape. So I end up with footage that looks great, but then I don't know what it's supposed to be. And then there's the whole talking to myself in public part. Talking to a camera on the side of the road is not natural, at least not for me. I'm standing there, helmet on, camera pointed at my face, and pretending this is completely normal behavior. Cars are kind of going by, people are staring. All right, cars are going by, but people aren't staring. Nobody cares. But my brain hasn't quite fully appreciated that information yet. But I'm still working on that again. I'm not a cycling expert. What do I have to add to the cycling space? But that's also why I started this project. Not to try and put forth any kind of expertise, but to just share the thoughts and experiences of an average cyclist. Thinking maybe somebody out there will be able to identify with it. Something else I've noticed is I don't just deprioritize cycling. We've talked about that a lot in the past. But I'll also deprioritize creating. There I am. I've got the footage. I've got the ideas. I've got everything lined up to put a video or an episode together. And then life gets a little busy, work gets intense, energy gets limited. And when that happens, both writing and making videos kind of slide down that priority list. And I've got that little mental block where I don't always feel like I'm a real creator. It's mostly because my brain thinks that those who are real online creators are very organized people with a lot to say, regular upload schedules, large audiences, and have contacts in the industry. And I don't tick any of these boxes. But again, those are hurdles I'm trying to get over. Because really, the only way to accomplish any goal is to actually try and do it, put forth the effort. Even if it's imperfect, even if it's inconsistent, and especially even if it feels uncomfortable. Take this podcast. I move slowly with it. Not because I don't care about it, and not because I don't have things I want to say, but it's a lot of that same hesitation. The moment I hit record, it feels like I'm making something official, which sounds crazy, I know. It's no longer just a thought or a conversation I'm wanting to have. It's this thing that I'm putting out into the world. Sometimes I'll have an idea for an episode or something that I want to talk through. And instead of recording it, I kind of let it sit in my head and marinate. And who knows how long it's going to be before I can kind of engage in all of that. Part of that is time. Part of that's energy. And yeah, part of it's that voice that is saying, is this good enough to put out there for other people? Which is kind of ridiculous, because the whole point of all this is to talk about what I'm experiencing or thinking as an average cyclist. It's an audio journal. It's not meant to be a perfect package. So now I'm just kind of trying to change how I feel about filming. Instead of, this ride has to be a video, it's becoming a little more like, I'll record some moments and let's see what happens. Some rides will become videos, which is awesome. Some will become B-roll for later use, which again is also cool. And some will become footage that I swear I'm going to use someday and then don't. But that's okay too. Not every moment needs some sort of creative outcome. Sometimes recording is just practice. And sometimes it's proof that you showed up. So this is a work in progress that I'm working on. I'm trying to improve. That's why I'm putting it out there. And hopefully we'll see how this all kind of comes together. If you feel this same push and pull between wanting to be out there writing and recording, between creating and wanting to just kind of be in the moment, welcome to the club. Because obviously it's okay to ride without filming. And it's okay to film without a plan. And it's okay to not post everything that you shoot. The bike doesn't care. The camera doesn't care. So it's okay. Just take a pause. If any of this resonated, I'd really genuinely love to hear how you balance writing and creating, how you showed up and made the most of it. Speaking of showing up, maybe it's time we start talking about events and not just the on-the-bike events that happen. But you know what? That's going to have to wait until next time. Thanks for joining me on this cafe stop, and let's definitely do this again soon.